The night began with laughter and ended with silence so heavy it felt like it could crush him. Matthew Carter stood in the parking lot of a quiet restaurant in Ohio, keys clenched in his shaking hand, heart pounding as if it had finally realized what his mind had tried to forget. He had survived sleepless nights, overdue bills, and the ache of being alone in a house built for a family. But nothing had prepared him for the moment when a simple favor from friends would crack open wounds he had spent years sealing shut. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment to pause. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in the idea that life can surprise us when we least expect it, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us why human connection still matters. Matthew had never planned on dating again. At 38, his life revolved around school drop-offs, grocery lists, and keeping his 8-year-old son Noah smiling despite everything they had lost. Since the accident that took his wife 3 years earlier, Matthew had learned how to survive on autopilot. Love, or even the idea of it, felt like a luxury he could no longer afford. His friends, however, refused to let him disappear into routine. They watched him show up for work exhausted, decline invitations, and laugh only halfway. So when they told him they had set him up on a date, he laughed too, assuming it was their latest attempt at forcing normalcy back into his life. He agreed mostly to get them off his back. He told himself it would be harmless. One dinner, polite smiles, then back to real life. What he did not expect was the knot forming in his chest as he drove across town, nor the way memories crept in with every red light. His hands remembered holding another woman's. His mind replayed evenings that no longer existed. By the time he parked, his chest felt tight, his breath shallow. He sat in the car longer than necessary, staring at the entrance like it was a test he hadn't studied for. Matthew had spent years being strong for Noah. He learned how to cook dinners that wouldn't burn, how to braid hair for school events, how to answer questions about heaven without breaking down. What he never learned was how to open himself again. Walking toward that restaurant door, he felt like an imposter, a widower pretending to be ready when he wasn't sure he ever would be. Inside, the restaurant glowed softly, the kind of place meant for quiet conversations and slow evenings. He scanned the room, nerves buzzing, and then it happened. He froze, not because of who he saw, but because of what he felt. Across the room sat a woman named Rachel Whitman, someone his friends had carefully chosen without knowing the full weight of what they were doing. Rachel wasn't his late wife, but she carried the same gentle presence, the same calm in her posture that made Matthew's breath hitch. It wasn't attraction that stopped him cold. It was fear. Fear that his heart, still bruised and fragile, might betray him by wanting again. Rachel was a nurse from Michigan, recently moved after caring for her own aging parents. She carried loss quietly, the kind that didn't shout but lingered in small pauses. When Matthew finally forced his legs to move and took his seat, he felt like a man stepping onto thin ice. Every instinct told him to run, but something else, something he thought had died with his wife, urged him to stay. The evening unfolded slowly. Matthew listened more than he spoke, afraid his voice might shake. He talked about Noah, about balancing work and parenting, about exhaustion that sleep never fixed. Rachel listened with patience, not pity. She didn't rush him or fill the silence. For the first time in years, Matthew felt seen without being judged, and that terrified him even more. Halfway through the meal, a memory hit him so hard he nearly excused himself. He remembered. Another night, another restaurant, another woman laughing across the table. Grief doesn't announce itself, it ambushes. His chest tightened, his hands trembled, and for a moment he couldn't hear anything but the echo of a life he lost. He thought about leaving. He thought about how unfair it would be to let someone else care about him when he was still broken. But Matthew stayed, not because he was brave, but because he was tired of running from his own heart. As the night continued, something shifted. The tension softened. Matthew realized he wasn't betraying his past by being present. He wasn't replacing anyone. He was simply allowing himself to exist beyond pain. Rachel shared her own struggles, the loneliness of starting over, the quiet nights in a new city. Their stories didn't compete, they connected. Two people shaped by loss, sitting across from each other, choosing honesty over armor. When the evening ended, Matthew walked back to his car feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because he had survived the night. Heavier because he knew he had opened a door he could no longer pretend wasn't there. He sat behind the wheel again, but this time he didn't freeze. He breathed, he felt, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel guilty for it. The days that followed were confusing. Matthew questioned everything. Was he ready? Was it fair to Noah? Was he allowed to feel happiness again? One night, as he tucked his son into bed, Noah looked up at him with the wisdom only children seem to have, and asked why he looked less sad lately. Matthew didn't have an answer, but the question itself felt like permission. He met Rachel again, and again after that. There were setbacks, nights when Matthew pulled away, overwhelmed by memories, moments when grief flared unexpectedly. But Rachel didn't rush him. She understood that healing wasn't linear. Slowly, Matthew learned that love after loss doesn't erase the past, it honors it by continuing. Months later, Matthew stood in his kitchen watching Noah laugh as he helped bake cookies, flour everywhere, joy unfiltered. Rachel stood nearby, smiling softly, not trying to take anyone's place. In that ordinary moment, Matthew felt something extraordinary. Peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of hope. Life hadn't become perfect. Bills still came, work was still stressful, grief still visited. But Matthew was no longer frozen in time. He was moving forward, one uncertain step at a time, carrying his past without letting it chain him to the floor. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that healing is possible even when it feels out of reach, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like this reach people who may be standing exactly where Matthew once stood. Special request, before this story ends, comment below with the word hope if you believe that love can return, even after loss. Matthew once thought the date was a joke. He once believed his heart was done. But sometimes, the moments that scare us the most are the ones that save us. And sometimes, freezing is just the pause before life begins again.